The military action resulting in victory over ISIS in Mosul was carried out under authority assumed as a result of legislation passed in 2001. There's broad agreement on the need to continue the war with ISIS, but no agreement over the legal grounds for that effort. Some believe Congress is abdicating its responsibility by not voting on an updated authorization for use of military force. Senators Tim Kaine and Jeff Flake have introduced the bill that would provide an updated AUMF. They discussed their proposal with Wilson Center President Jane Harman, and that discussion provides the focus for this edition of Rewind.
A major development, more than one, but a major development has been underreported. With the Iraqis in the lead, ISIS no longer controls Mosul. Authorization for the U.S. mission that was part of the coalition that achieved this victory was under the threadbare authorization for the use of military force of 2001, the 2001 AUMF in shorthand. My good friends who are here today have proposed a new draft, and their improved, better product explicitly authorizes military action against 3 terror groups, gives Congress an oversight role over who can be considered associated. That's one of the issues with the 2001 AUMF with each group, and in which countries military action can take place, and their bill provides an expedited process for Congress to reauthorize.
The 9/11 authorization that these guys voted for said the perpetrators of the attack of 9/11. That was kind of who it was, but it didn't name the groups or even any individuals. We name in our authorization ISIS, the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda. And then we have a fairly specific provision for adding in associated forces by a presidential listing that could be subject to a disapproval by Congress if we don't think, no, that group really isn't associated with the 3. Who are we fighting against? Let's be really clear about it. Where are we fighting? The 9/11 authorization has no geography reference to it, and it's been used in 14 different countries since 2001 to carry out some kinetic or other activity.
One of the tensions, at least that I've heard as I've talked endlessly to people about this, is a tension between the president as commander-in-chief wanting, not unlimited, but wanting, and not a blank check necessarily, but wanting adequate authority to exercise his or her authorities, and then Congress micromanaging. Do you think that with this draft, you have a balance that gives the commander-in-chief enough authority and just reserves to Congress the things that it should properly do?
Yeah, for those who think that we're taking too much authority from the president, Article 2, I would challenge that. The president does have to come forward, as it should be, and justify what he's doing. But it's a pretty high bar for the Congress to get over to stop the president from taking action. What
role do you think, I mean, you're doing this as members of the Senate. Mm-hmm. Have you consulted this White House or the last White House? What role do you think a president, I'm not just asking about President Trump, should play in drafting and advocating for the AUMF?
This always works better if the president makes a proposal and then the Congress puts the witnesses in the dock and asks them tons of tough questions, and then we apply a little sandpaper to it and change it.
Well, I think by definition, the fact that Congress, the people's representatives, are engaged in this and that we go through regular order. We've had one hearing, we'll have more. Go through a markup process, bring it to the floor, have amendments offered and accepted or rejected. That is the way the public gets involved, but certainly through the hearing process, and I've been hearing from my constituents, and it's been positive. And when Congress works with the administration on this, it's better. Our foreign policy is better when it's bipartisan, and when we can have vigorous debates as we consider legislation. But once it's there, we definitely need to speak with one voice on foreign policy.
I assume that the action of backbone in some way relates to public sentiment in your constituencies, some way or another. And we've heard commentary here that this war on terror is starting to look a little bit like the war on drugs or the war on poverty, et cetera. So I'm wondering whether there is some investment by your constituents in the status quo that is driving this absence of backbone, number one. And number two, related to that, in a action against a non-state actor, there's not going to be a Bay of Tokyo or a Treaty of Paris event. Does Congress want a say in saying that it's over?
I mentioned that I do hear from constituents who applaud our step forward here. Having said that, this is not an overwhelming issue. I mean, it's health care, it's tax policy, it's regulation, it's a lot of other things come before this. And so members of Congress are not feeling the heat, maybe in certain constituencies with big military populations or other issues that they have, but not across the country. So, I mean, the lack of backbone is simply a function of you're not hearing it from your constituents, and you can afford to just let it go. I don't think we should. I think as responsible legislators, we ought to move forward with it.
For more on this and related topics, visit wilsoncenter.org. Click the Research tab to find information on a variety of regions, countries, and issues.